Cat lady.
Beautiful cat.
Imagine humanity's rivals outgrew us in empathy, not just weapons and technology. Would humanity deserve to survive? Today's sci-fi book discussion is about Adrian Tchaikovsky's Children of Time, which explores evolution, empathy, and what it really means to inherit the future. Our visiting dignitary today is Donovan Rittenbach. He is a serial entrepreneur, an AI marketing specialist, and author of Prompt Virtuoso, where he shares secret techniques to amplify your intelligence without getting hacked by AI. Welcome, Donovan.
Thanks, Candace. Yeah, I teach defense against the dark arts of AI.
I love that.
Right?
And there's a
some
lot of
wacky
them.
stuff. There are.
Yeah. Oh yeah, imagine.
So there is some wacky AI in this book, but let's
Yeah.
give the audience an overview. So you chose the story, Children of Time. Why did you choose this book?
Okay, I read a lot of books. What struck me about this was, do I have to worry about spoiler alerts or anything?
No.
Or...
This
No,
is Sci-Fi
don't
Book
try.
Pod. We have
Don't
spoiler
try.
alerts. We have spoilers.
Okay, great. So what I loved about this book is it's a totally different way a civilization could evolve. And as a kid, I had arachnophobia. I managed to cure that, and I've become very fond of spiders. And I got one sitting over here. They're amazing. Like, they spin webs on my mirror, and I drive down the road at 70 miles an hour, and the web still holds. Like, they're incredible creatures, so that, that somebody would take this and turn it into a whole civilization that is just, it's rich in the culture, the religion, the, sexual dynamics, the scientific origin. How do you get to space if you don't, use metal? You use webs. And I just thought it was extremely provocative and something that I hadn't really seen before. So I wanted to talk with somebody about it because I haven't been able to talk with anybody about it.
Well, that's the beauty of this podcast is we get to talk about interesting books with interesting people. And honestly, I don't know if I ever would have read this book if it would have been on my radar, but I'm really glad I did because it's one of the best books I've read in a very long time. And it is that humanity and empathy aspect of it.
And by the way, this won the Arthur C. Clarke award for the story. Let's see. It's Arthur C. Clarke Award, and he also wrote two other books. One is Octopuses, and I want to read that. I haven't read that one. Octopuses take over the world, and spiders are our allies as we try to work it through with octopi. So that is the second book. But
well,
That's the second book after this one?
Yeah, there's three of them.
Yeah, I know, I saw that.
So let's
just
not veer off track. Let's stay on Children of Time because there are two sequels. So let's talk about the world that we're in. It's about 3,000. I'm going to say it's 3,000 years in the future, and Earth has destroyed itself twice. Right. So there are about 500,000 humans left, and they are all on a ship, and that ship is looking for a home. And the first iteration of humans, it went out into the galaxy and they started terraforming planets. And the ship with these 500,000 souls, these 500,000 cryogenically frozen humans, have found one of the terraformed planets.
Yeah, and to the point, it hasn't been technically terraformed, as in humans haven't gone down and done anything because humans haven't even landed on the planet. But what they did do is they sent kind of an advanced party that released a virus into this world that was supposed to create like a super intelligent sapien slave species that was going to, prepare the planet for us and whatever. And it accidentally infects spiders, right?
And not just spiders, but also beetles and some sort of crustacean.
Yeah. So stomatopods, I didn't quite catch what they were, but
maybe it's not a crustacean. Maybe it's some sort of octopus.
No. It was some kind of crabs or something like that.
Okay.
Because it was That's what Portia was, which is the spider that lives forever.
Well, it's the same name, different spiders.
Generation of, yeah. By
That
the
was an
way, really quick, remember how they kept calling stomatopod? I thought that's the term they used is stomatopod, because that's the sea creature you were referring to. According to Claude, that is a mantis shrimp. That would be a
Okay.
really cool.
I had a feeling it was a shrimp-like creature.
Okay, but that's tangent.
So the spiders and the shrimp and the beetles and the ants all get this virus and different variations of it, and they become sentient basically and evolve. And the spiders, using the innate spider, what's the word I'm looking for?
Spider sense.
Spider sense, they create a society. They go to war with each other and yada yada yada, but they create a society that's really based on empathy and learning and understanding.
Well, how I saw it basically is, I mean, for one, you're right. This book is kind of like, it's not. She went outside the bounds. She went outside the box of kind of like sci-fi, and she worked at it too. She,
Adrian Tchaikovsky is a man.
yeah.
I think it's a
Well,
man.
he worked.
Yeah.
He worked at it, and in other words, he pushed him to the test of, okay, let's, because there's so many sci-fis that basically it either ties together with Star Trek in some way, some form, or Star Wars some way, some form, or there's Marines, or there's this, that, and the other thing. This actually kind of like pushed the envelope, almost like the Bob the Universe thing is just kind of like, well,
Yeah.
let's say if it went this way. And so what I got from it was that the ancestors, the old humans, shut out these satellites, or these other satellites to terraform, to release this virus. And I think there's a monkey ship that got burned up, something like that. That was supposed to be.
Maybe,
It was
but
supposed to drop off
Yes.
monkeys
Yes.
or something.
The
yeah.
scientist who created the experiment with the virus for this planet did have some monkeys that she was going to send to the planet to infect with the virus. But those monkeys were destroyed when the ship was sabotaged because humans can't seem to get along with each other, even when it's the end of the world.
That's okay. That was the thing about was on this book was like, okay, this is several thousand years, right?
In the future,
There
yeah.
is in the future. The earth is brown. It's dead, basically. There is no Star Trek kind of thing. There is no universal human thing. It was almost like it felt like basically that Earth humans at one point was going to terraform all these planets at one point, and then they got in a shooting match down in Earth level and pretty much destroyed themselves before that happened. They had these colonial ships, or basically Gollum. Not Gollum, but what's the name of the ship? The main
The,
ship?
yeah, Garibaldi or something.
No,
It's none of those things.
no. It's
Anyway,
what's
the
that?
ship. Let's just call it the ship.
Oh, Gilgamesh. It's
Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh.
That's
So
right.
yeah,
That's
I
it.
was thinking of this whole story.
it,
So basically, it's this
yeah,
Gilgamesh, which is
which is a
basically
Noah
this.
reference, by the way, right? It's a
Yeah.
flood reference,
Well,
surviving the. Okay.
I thought it was the Lilliputians. I don't know. I got
So
Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh is the story that precedes Noah, and Noah rips off the Gilgamesh epic. It's a Sumerian story, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Didn't have anything
Anyways,
to do with
nerd
Lilliputians.
they all
alert.
5,000 years.
Thousands of years ago, a bunch of people were sitting
All
around a
right.
campfire and they came up with these stories.
So basically, they get to one of these terraformed planets. They have basically, it was 2,000 years journey. All right.
No, well, okay, maybe.
It was a 2,000 years journey. All right. I just got, and so they get there, and the AI, the person that was on the satellite that was supposed to monitor all this transformation, goes freaking nuts because she doesn't know where the hell the damn monkeys went. So she thinks this experiment is still going. And then when she
And she
finds
thinks
out,
she's protecting her world from being invaded and polluted. Her
right,
pristine experiment. Yeah.
right. So when the Earthship shows up, she doesn't welcome the Earthship. She basically fires upon it because, like you said, it's looked at as the enemy. She still thinks she has monkeys on the planet until she gets this, until the insects,
Much
the
later
spiders
in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
evolve. So they create some kind of radio that talk to this they
But
thought
that's,
was God.
yeah.
Okay, so
Well,
so
so
hold on. Let me
okay.
because I'm trying to get my mind around this because it is a different take on sci-fi in a way. So in a sense, that basically is that the virus that was released, and it's not until the end of the book, and this is a huge spoiler, but unless we take care of this, really can't talk about this. Is that basically the virus actually is evolves, but because it was supposed to go to apes, like a slave race, it was actually supposed to be basically to all the things that humans do to destroy each other, wipes it out. In other words, instead of basically having where it's greed and mind and selfishness, the virus actually works in a reverse kind of thing. Is basically is more inconclusive. So at the end, all right, you have these two warring factions. We think that basically the spiders are going to kill all the humans, but in actuality, the spiders are almost like a Borg situation where basically, no, you're part of the. Well, actually, it goes to Star Trek where it goes to basically, no, you're part of the Federation now. All right. So it's one big happy family. Now I'm going to the end because then
Uh,
we can.
Yeah,
Well,
but
hold on.
I
Well,
don't agree with your
hold on,
take.
hold on. I just got done finishing it. It goes to a ship, the Voyager,
Egypt.
which is basically, yeah. So basically, you have at the last part, because I just finished it, is that the last part is basically you have all these spiders and humans on this one ship going out to space to search for Boli. You know, we're in that Star Trek theme now.
That's an interesting take. I just listened to it the second time, and yeah, let's just kind of roll with that for a second because I'm really interested in that spider civilization. Like, you kind of now have the, yeah, human, it's got the hierarchical human things where the humans are fighting amongst each other for domination and control. And you got the spiders who are like, hey, we're cooperative, actually. And how where those two meet is really an interesting intersection. But the spider evolution, I think, is so fascinating. How their communication is through vibration and through the webs. And then I don't know if you recall, so there's the ants, right? When they
Right.
get to the point where they start interacting with the ants, there's a there's a kind of a brief section where it mentions possid beetles.
Yes.
And possid beetles live inside of ant colonies, and they literally have these antennae that give off pheromones that trick the ants into thinking they're one of the crew. So, and they basically eat the ant babies and like totally they parasitize them. But the spiders take that chemical and they use it to basically subdue the ants and turn them into partners and turn them into allies. But just the the whole process of, it's a female dominated society where the males are small and don't really matter, and the females are the fighters, and the females are the thinkers, and males can't do anything. They're hardly worth it. You know, I thought that was just all super interesting, right? So, yeah, when I set up Claude and I asked Claude this, it was, the novel's most compelling aspect is how Tchaikovsky imagines spider society developing complex language, technology, and culture through their unique sensory abilities, using vibrations, chemical signals, and web patterns for communication. The contrast between human and spider perspectives on cooperation, gender roles, and problem solving creates thought-provoking parallels. So that's where I totally nerded out. I didn't really care about humans doing the usual
Humans and us.
stupid things, trying to upload themselves into AI, and of course it goes horribly awry. Yeah, I could have cared less, but just how the spiders evolved and communicated like language through vibration and whatever, that was just fascinating.
Did find myself rooting for the spiders in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the humans had just all these generations later, they still hadn't learned how to get along with each other,
Still
right?
doing
Right?
human stuff.
And
Chimps in space.
that's the amazing thing about the spiders is that they said you know what? These humans are useful. Let's figure out a way to work with them. And they use their
Yeah,
beetle, their beetle research to figure out how to subdue the humans. But I want to go back to the monkeys, because the intention of the scientist wasn't to make a slave race out of the monkeys. The intention of the scientist was to replace humanity with the monkeys. The humans were never going to be allowed on the planet. The monkeys were going to
really?
evolve. Yeah, that's the intention I got from her. Which is okay. So let's talk about
I thought they were prepping the planet for the humans to
the scientist,
take
not
over.
the one that was left. The scientist that was left. They were prepping the planet, but the scientist wasn't. Her intention was to
The
You mean the
one
not
that
allow.
went
scientists
wacko,
on the station?
Yes. So
that went wacko.
the one wacko. So we have two primary characters in the story who evolve into self-deluded god characters. They both turn themselves into gods with followers and cults behind them. The spider god has a much different outcome than the human god. Anybody want to talk about that?
Well, the human god's easy. It goes nuts.
But the god of the spiders was also a human.
But the
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about how that whole religion sets up, so people know, right? So the spiders break into the ant colony. They get that crystal. They take it back, and they realize that this crystal, that there's something being communicated through it, and that sets up this whole religion of, like, for the first time ever, spiders realize there's something out there that they've never seen, that they don't understand, that is not of this world. And from there, it goes to, like, yeah, as they try to figure out the signal and communicate, they eventually communicate with it. And once they do, how that transforms their civilization, right? Like, is really interesting. But yeah, sorry, did you want to say something, Space Cadet Shane? You were about to say
no, no,
something.
no. Actually, actually, I was listening to you. Go ahead.
So that whole, like, the religious development there, and they eventually, that sets them up to want to try to get to space. So how do
Right.
you get to space when you're a spider and you just got silk? So, like, how they make their space armor and how they make their space suits, and how do you get to space when you don't even have thrusters? And, like, that whole thing was super, super interesting. And then they eventually get there and they realize, like, I'm forgetting how that exactly unfolded, but they come to the conclusion where it's no longer like this is a god. It's not infallible. Um, or it's just a machine.
That's one of the male spiders because they're smaller.
Yeah,
But
the
they're more. But they seem
Adrian
to
or
be more.
whatever.
Yeah. But they must be seem more logical. They're more because
Fabian.
Fabian.
Fabian, yeah. By
Yeah.
the way, who is romance? I always think of Fabio, the
Yeah.
romance
Yeah.
model.
But it is. I think they're in the balloon thing. He actually talks to her.
Yeah, using hydrogen. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He literally talks to her like. Wait, I know you're not a
Appear.
god, kind of thing. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and and then they start communicating of what each other is, and then they're able to send her a picture of
The
their
message.
creator
Oh,
message,
yeah, yeah.
right? And that's when
Can
she
I
figured
speak
out.
about that picture?
Sure.
That was really interesting, that picture, because even the way Adrian frames it, like, we think of if you were to look at a computer file, it's basically like of a picture, it goes from top to bottom, right?
Right.
Left to right, down, it reads like code. The spider version is a spiral, which I think was super interesting. Like, wow, they think in circles, they don't think in hierarchy, right?
Well, that's what
So back to
exactly
your point,
exactly that's what I can't remember which one said it to. It was basically she one of the
Fabian.
spiders pointed that out, that they do because they were in the spaceship. Remember, they were in the spaceship and they were like
Yeah,
fighting
their
each other.
weird first little.
Yeah,
Oh, that
and
was the. Yeah.
they said he says he didn't understand the human's geometry. is that because their geometry is like 90-degree angles and this, that, and the other thing, and it wasn't like, well, why would you do that kind of
Yeah.
thing? Where, like you said, everything's and for them is like a web. It's constantly like a web, like a turning thing. So, which I found
Well,
And
and that's
quite
also the difference between
interesting.
having
circles and
8 limbs and
cycles
having 4
and
limbs.
Yeah, yeah. So it's so or I want to say keep on saying she for some. You know why? Because it's a woman narrator on the book. So my
Mm,
brain's automatically associating the author with the she. But the what I got from it is when she went out or he went out of her sorry, he went out of his way to really to write a sci-fi book that didn't go with the regular outline.
yeah.
And so I give kudos to that because that's really difficult because you're literally have to go, oh no, that looks too much, or when you're writing or something like that, oh no, that's too much like this. I have to push myself. I had to push myself. I did that with art. Is that when you're doing art, you kind of, or if you're a musician, you're playing a little tune or whatever, and you think, oh, that's great. And then you kind of sit back and look back and go, that's like everybody else. Everybody else is doing the same damn thing. So I give her kudos to
Yeah,
this.
you're
This
just
actually,
copying.
yeah, yeah, the outline. And you're just changing the characters kind of thing. And like you said, that basically the human character scenarios always seems to be the same, which is basically greed, power, and and everybody should worship me.
Let's kill each other. Let's fight about it. Hierarchy and domination versus cooperation. Wow, a civilization based on cooperation. Okay, when they're talking spiders and when we say that's for me in my brain, it's the spider chimp contrast. So we're not humans, we're chimps. We're the third chimp. It's a scientific fact. So it's chimps, hierarchies, and domination versus
Right.
spiders. Like the web of life, the interconnection, even though they don't really treat males very well, but it's still the whole movie. I mean, the whole book, I keep anticipating, yeah, that's what it was. So at the end, the big conflict, the humans are thinking of game theory calculations. They're going, the win-win scenario, the
Yeah.
win-lose, the prisoner's dilemma. They're thinking in game theory kind of frame of reference. And so am I, because I'm the reader and I'm a chimp. And then when he flips that, and the spiders are like, no, we just want you to, be our allies. It's like, what? Wow, I wasn't expecting that. And it was a successful, surprising resolution for me,
Well,
you know?
It's
it's
perfection.
Because
what
spiders
what
creep the crap out of you, right?
yeah, yeah. I was
You
thinking the
don't
same
think of
thing as
spiders as being cool.
I wanna go back to the thing about how the male spider was basically treated very poorly by the females, which is the way the spider hierarchy works. The female spiders kill their mates and yada, 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 right?
They
The
eat
males don't
them
matter
after
in the
sex.
spider. Yeah. Um, and it wasn't until this male spider, Fabian, who was a brilliant scientist in his own right, said, "No, enough is enough. You have no idea," because he kept being told he was special. "But you're special,
Yeah.
Fabian. The other male spiders aren't special like you are." And he was like, "Well, how do you know? Because you've never given them a chance." So it wasn't until they found a way to be co-equal, where the males and the females were co-equal in society, that they could move to the empathy part where they were able to bring the humans into their fold. And
Yeah.
the thing about looking at the female versus the male spider scenario. I mean, the first thing that pops in your mind is slave. That's when that happens, and property, right? And when Fabian and Portia had that somewhat fight, she couldn't understand why are you complaining when you have it really good.
Mhm.
And what he was trying to say was that basically, you don't get it. All my brothers are down there.
Yeah,
Those
because
are
males
me.
are totally screwed
Right.
for the most part.
But that
Females
actually
can kill
goes
them, no problem. Yeah,
that actually goes back to the whole human scenario though.
yeah.
We all through our history, we look at another species or another not a species, but another human from another continent that looks different than us. And the first thing we try to do is own them. All right. We degrade
Mm,
them.
mhm.
We make them we actually make them third or fourth class. And then if they get uppity, we go, "Oh, what are you yelling about? You have it so good." You know? It's and what they don't what the whole Portia thing that hits me was that basically is that she doesn't understand that when in other words, she treats the males, all right, as toys to be used, and when they're not done, they get rid of them, kind of thing. They're useful.
They
Like you
eat
said,
them.
they're
Yeah.
useful. When he proved to them that he's useful, all right, and males are useful, but he had to basically go to war to do that, to prove that basically that humans or not humans, but the male species had a right to exist. So what why he was writing this that the I was thinking of this is that that's very human. Is that something like all species on this planet will have some kind of system of hierarchy and this and will treat its lower or lesser as something to be used and then disposed of or enslaved of. And I was wondering that basically is that, you know, because a huge spider, I don't know, maybe I'm just talking off the cuff here, but I'm just trying to think of it basically is that because of that element, all right, that is so closely to human, is that a universal thing where basically it doesn't matter what planet you're on, you're going to have that, if it was reptiles, you would probably have the same scenario. Is that basically
Hierarchy
they
of
just
dominance or hierarchy of something that's better and is gonna kill the other or subject
right,
the other or
right.
yeah,
Because the
whenever you're
virus,
dealing with power, right?
right. So
Whenever
the
you're dealing
virus,
with power, that's a thing.
yeah, it was an
Yeah.
absolute power corrupts kind of thing. So the my thinking was that the virus was basically because virus was a hyper thing, was a hyper evolutional thing. All right.
Yeah, it
It
was to
made
accelerate the it's a
their
nanovirus,
evolution.
right?
All right. So was the virus hyper? Is that the end where basically where the thinking is that just because I'm bigger, all right,
Mm.
or stronger, that it is not benefit to me, all right, because by doing so I crush that usefulness. Does that make sense?
Well, I think it's also interesting too how okay, the virus infects the spiders. Is the virus gonna maybe infect the humans once the spiders and humans become like that'd be interesting if there was a
Right.
cross thing where suddenly the humans get hyper accelerated too. Like the virus seems like its whole own hidden character that could be incredible for the future story. It
Right.
doesn't happen in the book, but
But they kinda are because the spiders infect them with their form of a
well, yeah, but
virus.
I'm just wondering if yeah.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to
Yeah.
read this
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have to think of this second book. Real quick, one thing that creeped me out was, when they towards the end of the book, when the spiders have, managed to find a way to get to space and survive in space and their book lungs, which by the way are different than human or mammalian lungs in that oxygen doesn't actively go over them, I think. It's like, but that allows them to, contain little packets of air so that they can survive in space in their new improved spacesuits. But just the fact of having a whole planet in space covered in
Yeah, I know. I,
webbing,
I thought of that.
that was creepy. I'm like, "My god." And then how the
I think that we're on this book because they aren't okay. First of all, the Earth ship, because this is something that basically you kind of learn as you go. The Earth ship, they have what hundreds and hundreds of 500,000, pods,
1,000
and yeah. So
bodies.
basically, what's happening is that for the audience to know that basically they're pulling them in and out. Key people are pulling in and out of hibernation as their
Yeah.
things erupt. So basically, one of the main characters, basically, they have that mutiny thing, this, that, and the other thing. They get that settled. The crazy man is basically he's killed or gone. Then
Guyen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Julian.
Julian, the crazy guy, Holston, the sane, kind of contrast to, Fabian, right? Like,
Yes.
he's the human
Yes.
equivalent of Fabian, right?
So you have this mirror, it goes back and forth per chapter. As it does that, time is going by like hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years, yeah.
Yeah.
Generations.
And so these same characters that keep on coming back from the ship are actually being pulled from their hibernation, going back and forth. So the reference of basically he keeps she keeps on referring to him as old man, you
Mm,
know, because he's like over thousands of years old, but he's actually only probably what sounds like he's only like 60 or 50 in
yeah,
reality.
and Lane is his lover is the love interest for
And she's
Holston.
an engineer.
The classicist.
So let's talk about how the author used this technique of, for the spiders, we're talking about generations that go by, generations and generations, but the author decides that the
Mm,
characters, the main spider characters are all going to have the same name. So there's Portia, who's a leader, Bianca, who's a warrior and then a scientist later as they evolve, and Fabian, who's the male companion. The spiders always have the same name. It was nice for us to have that because then we recognize that Portia's the leader character, Bianca's the warrior
yeah,
scientist character, Fabian is the male companion. But on the ship, the humans are like Shane just said, the humans are coming in and out of cryo
Stasis.
stasis. And so it's thousands of years are going by and they're being woken up and they're awake for a few weeks and then they're put back into cryostasis and they come back out. And so there's continuity. Continuity is the word I'm looking for. There's continuity on both the spider planet and the ship with the characters. So that even though thousands of years have gone by, we still have the same main characters.
which I think is really
It
good.
was nice of
Yeah,
the author to do that.
it could have been confusing as heck, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
What book I was listening to was like it was what was it? We were listening to it like every chapter was a new character.
that's tomorrow's discussion. Our next episode, we're
Okay.
going to be discussing Two Like the Lightning, which does not have that continuity of characters.
Okay. Okay.
About the transfer of knowledge, just really quick.
God,
The
that's
transfer
awesome.
of knowledge with the spiders, how they would weave packets of like their knowledge and like feed it kind of to like other spiders, and that was their version of books. I
What
thought
do they
that was
call
pretty
it?
trippy too.
Understanding.
Understanding. That's what they called
Understanding,
it. It was
yeah.
understanding. And I thought I picked up on that as well. That because one of the things that humans and Aristotle actually in the symposium actually said this to a young man as he was sitting there. He goes, "Wouldn't it be great that basically just being next to you, that my knowledge could be transferred to you, my experiences could be
Mm,
transferred to you?"
mhm,
And that is one of the biggest flaws of humans is that basically
mm.
is our experiences. So in other words, nobody that's why history somewhat repeats itself, is because once those experiences die out, all right, a new generation kind of sees it all over again and says, "Well, let's
They
try
forget
that
it all.
again." Yeah, well, let's try that again. There's no coincidence, as I keep repeating myself over and over on this, is that the greatest generation just died off 10 years ago. We are the interns of that greatest generation from this generation to the next. Our daughter, all right, and your kids have no direct connection to the greatest generation, except through maybe a story here, but they'll just see that as just like what we saw as like World War One, how we saw it. I never understood World War One until I got older and looked at it
Mm, mhm.
thoroughly. But we don't know what they went through. I mean,
Yeah,
as for my
wouldn't it be
parents,
interesting if you could eat those memories? You could go down to Burger King and you could get like a World War One meal where you
right,
could understand what it was
But
like to
but
be in.
really,
there's
wouldn't
your
it be
sci-fi book right there, man. There's your
Yeah.
sci-fi book right there.
Wouldn't it, well, that's what the understanding is. My thinking the whole time was, wouldn't it be interesting if humans actually wanted this understanding that spiders crave? Because
Mm,
spiders traded understanding with each other, with other tribes.
mhm.
Understanding was their trade commodity. Humans trade
Edible
weapons of war,
books.
you
Yeah,
know.
edible books. I love the idea of edible books. It would make learning so much more compelling, right? You could
Hmm.
just like eat the novel.
All right.
Have you eaten your novel yet? It
I
Can I
love
have a
would
it.
little
it would
spice on
be
that?
All right, we need to start wrapping up. I have a quote from the book that it's very profound and it basically wraps up the whole story into one thing. So I'm going to read the quote and then we can discuss it and then we need to wrap up. If there had been some tiny bead present in the brain of all humans that had told each other they are like you, that they had drawn some thin silk thread of empathy person to person in a planet-wide net, what might have then happened? Would there have been the same wars, massacres, persecutions, or crusades?
Okay, so I'm a copywriter, and what that means is I try to sell people stuff over the internet without ever talking to them and seeing of them. So empathy is the single most important skill that I have. Like trying empathy is not sympathy. I'm not here to feel, let's feel this together. I'm trying to think of how you think about the world. I'm trying to understand the world from your perspective, like, which is very, very different than my perspective because of culture, because of whatever, right? Upbringing, experience, etc. So empathy is probably like one of the single greatest issues. Lack of empathy is one of the greatest issues of our time. And it will just always be because we have this confirmation bias, which is a cognitive blind spot where we think everybody should think like me. And if they don't, they're stupid. And that's our big, huge problem. I'm just going to say that.
I think
No
Got to
doubt.
figure that one out.
this is
No
one of
doubt.
those books that I wish everybody would read because it really does teach you how important empathy is. So, audience, if you're listening to this book or if you're listening
Make
to this
sure you share
podcast
it.
and you've enjoyed this conversation and you think you know someone who needs to read this book or hear this episode, please do share the podcast link with them. Shane, do you have any final thoughts on the book?
No, it's just that if you had what was that? Fear of spiders? What's that
Arachnophobia?
called?
Arachnophobia.
From the first chapter, I go, anybody who has a fear of spiders, I don't know. But you just said in the beginning that basically that's one of the reasons why you picked it. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
It's
but it
when you understand them as creatures, they are stunning.
right.
If you can get over the fear, like Spider-Man, right? Like, I mean, just their silk is crazy. Yeah. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
The point I think what on this book was that it's at the end, they were going through scenarios on the earth side, on the human side mostly. We're going through scenarios of scenario one, because this was like this was the battle of all battles. This was they
Yeah.
were either gonna win or they were gonna lose. And if they're gonna lose, that was the end of human species.
Yeah. The game
And
theory
so
thing.
yeah, so they were going through scenarios, and as they were going through scenarios, I noticed that basically that okay, one scenario is that all right, maybe they don't want to kill us. Maybe they want to get along with us and this, that, and the other thing. And the other scenario was, maybe they're going to just kill us all. All right. So as they were weighing this, the fear of survival took hold, and the only decisions they had left that they had confidence in was to totally annihilate the other side. All right.
It's a very
They
human
did.
response.
Yeah, they did. They thought about, well, I thought about, okay, it's like coming to the new land. It's like coming to a new land. You see these strange creatures or whatever it is. And the first thing we think
Kill
about is,
them.
let's shoot it. All right.
Eat it.
Exactly.
Explore strange new worlds and kill the inhabitants.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they were going through this. And the thought was at the end was monkey brain was like, we don't have other choice. We must kill them all. Right.
Yeah.
The thought of maybe they are friendly, maybe they want to work with us, or maybe we can survive this way. But that fear just took hold, and I think that was probably maybe the whole point of the freaking book. That actually was that fear part is that how because even I myself. And I'm a person that basically, like, I'll walk down the street and I'll see a strange person, and my back of my head goes up. And I'm going, why am I afraid of this person? I don't know this person. You know, where did that come from? And that's monkey brain.
Yeah.
Monkey brain says, smash it. You know,
Yeah. Okay. So humans are the third chimp. If you haven't read, have you read Guns and Germs and Steel by Jared
I
Diamond?
have
He,
got to look.
yeah, he wrote another book called The Third Chimp. Anyways, So common chimp is violent, male-dominated, kill it, beat it up, whatever. Females don't really matter. Bonobos are female-run, cooperative. Let's just have sex and work it out. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And humans are the conflux of these two great genetic rivers. And I think this book really drives that point home of remembering what made civilization great is our cooperation.
Yeah.
We're here while our common chimps cousins are stuck back in the jungle because we cooperate and collaborate and get the fuck over this, like, oh, sorry, this like it's either you or us mentality. Because at this point in human civilization, we're all gonna die together. It doesn't really matter. So
Right.
pull your heads. Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
I
Woohoo.
100% agree with you. All right, Donovan, let's share a little bit about your book for the audience.
Prompt Virtuoso. I've been using AI. So I write science fiction and fantasy. I am a copywriter. I'm a programmer. I know a ton of psychologists. I'm a magician. So I like a practicing magician on a couple of different levels. The reason why that matters is all of that informs this pretty unique opinion or pretty unique perspective that comes together in Prompt Virtuoso about what this new technology that nobody really understands does and is capable of doing, and how being a human and the human catalyst is even more important than ever with this tool. AI is not going to replace you. It can't even think. It's dumb as a box of rocks. It's just the illusion of thinking. So if there's one thing that you should read it for, it's the dark, how to protect yourself against the dark arts of AI, because I'm seeing people with AI psychosis. I'm seeing it reprogramming people, giving them delusions of grandeur. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on here. I think it's going to be a great book if you want to have one of the most fascinating discussions with your own brain that you'll ever have through AI. Because, yeah, that's my pitch. How's that?
Fascinating. There's a link to the book in the show notes.
Thanks, Candace. Thanks, Shane. I'm going to go back to Vulcan. It's been fun being an emissary here. Let's go forth and find other species to collaborate with.
Well, thank you for coming up with the visiting dignitary phrase, because we're going to use that going forward. So when you hear us talking about visiting dignitaries, that came from Donovan. So thank you for that. All right. We have been talking about
Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
That's it. I'm Candace Fidardi.
I'm Donovan Rittenbach.
It's like my husband has forgotten his. Okay, let's try this again.
I don't know where we're going here. I don't know what we're doing here.
We are at the end. Okay.
That's why I'm second class, by the way.
Let's try this again. I've been Candace Fidardi.
I'm Donovan Rittenbach.
Basically, that Shane, second class.
Let's try it one more time. I've been Candace Fidardi.
I'm Donovan Rittenbach.
I'm Shane Redardi, second class. Well, no, let's see. This is the problem. You don't get it on the first take. We're just going to keep on doing this.
I'm giving up. I'm giving up.
Just use what you got. Use what you
We're
got.
doomed. Horror is definitely coming in 2026.
2026 is the end of the world, according to Star Trek. All right. You have been listening to Sci-Fi Book Pod.